Hi, I'm Bob Kovacs, and in this video I will install a storm door on the front door of this house. The door we got is an Andersen 2500 and we got it at Home Depot. Now the first time we went to Home Depot, the only door that had the features we wanted, which was the nickel handle with the white door, the only package they had in the store didn't look right, but we opened it up and thought everything was in there. Then when we got it home, we found out that the nickel door handle was missing. Somebody had opened up the package and taken that out. And so we called Andersen, and after a long wait and going through a number of steps, we found out at the very end that it was going to take 21 days to replace the handle, to get the correct handle that we wanted with the door. Anyway, so we decided that we didn't want to do that wait. We just took everything back to Home Depot. Even though the box says don't return it, we just took everything back, said that the box was missing parts, and they gave us our money back. We then went to a different Home Depot and got a completely sealed package that had everything in it. When you get the door home, like we did, the first thing we did was to check that all the parts were in the box. And there is no one list that shows all the parts. There's an installation guide, which is loose in the box. When you open the box, you'll find it. And it shows the large parts, the main big parts. And it's, again, in the installation guide, and it's loose in the box. Then there's a number of smaller boxes inside the big box. This one says installation kit. And inside that box is another parts list showing the small parts. These are the screws and clips and all the small parts that you'll need to mount the door. The door comes with everything that it needs. And again, everything is inside the main box. At the top of the door is an orange tag that indicates the top interior of the door. One of the first things you need to check is to be sure that the inner door handle on the storm door won't interfere with the exterior door handle on your existing house door. So we looked at ours very carefully, and it looks like the storm door handle is going to be about here, and it looks like it will clear this lock set. So we're going to install the lock set on this side. If you do have interference, you can always install it on the other side of the door, but for us, we will install it on this side. The first thing to get attached to the door is the long hinge rail. This is the long rail with the hinges on it, and the top of the hinge rail, the topmost hinge, the bottom hole, lines up with a hole that's pre-drilled near the top of the door. So get those two lined up. For screws, you attach it with the 1/2-inch screws that have unpainted heads. The screws they provide, these are the unpainted screws, have a little drill bit tip on the end. So you don't need to drill holes for these screws. Now, if you feel uncomfortable with that, Andersen does provide a drill bit that you can use to pre-drill holes. But you can actually just drive these screws in, especially if you use a drill driver, and just drive them right in. There's a protective film at the bottom of the door, so peel it up and get it out of the way. Next, install the door sweep at the bottom of the door. Place it over the bottom of the door, center it up on either side. Now there's a slot here and a slot here. So what you want to do is you want to get the screw into the bottom of the slot, which will give you room to adjust the door sweep up and down to make sure it works properly. So get it centered up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mark the bottom of that slot with a pen and then drill a hole in that spot. For the drill bit to start smoothly, I'll put a little ding with this punch in the spot where my mark is. Using the drill bit that came in the pink bag, go ahead and drill the holes. Be sure when you drill that you don't go all the way through the other side of the door. You only want to do the top side. Attach the sweep using the screws with the painted heads. The Andersen 2500 door comes with these two orange installation clips. These obviously are not permanently attached to the door, they're just for the installation. And we are now going to install this clip underneath this screw on the latch side of the door. The other side of the door is the hinge side. This is the latch side. So it goes like that. So Before you drive this screw all the way down, make sure that you can put this spacer clip on the end, and then go ahead and tighten it down. The other orange installation clip simply slides over the door on the latch side about 6 inches from the bottom of the door. The handle set drill kit box that comes in the large carton for the door has the cover plate that covers the hinge side opening where the latch would get installed if you installed it on this side. We're putting the latch on the other side, so we want to use this cover to hide the opening. Use the 2 screws that come with this cover plate. Now it's time to put the storm door in the opening on the house. One strong person can do it, but it helps to have a second person around in case there's a problem. Once the door is in place, make sure the orange clip on the right overhangs the door frame properly. You'll need the screws in the yellow bag to attach the storm door to the door frame. So the time has come to put the screws in that attach the door to the door frame, the storm door to the house door frame. So I'm going to go ahead and drive those screws in. The instructions say that you can use the drill bit to drill a pilot hole, but these are pretty pointy screws and they go in just fine. Once all the screws are attached outside on the door frame, then there are 8 more screws, 2 for each hinge, that need to be driven in. We're now all done with these 2 orange clips, so they can be taken off the door and thrown away. I'm now putting the rain cap in place. I'm holding it all the way over against the left-hand side for me, which is against the hinge rail, and I've also brought it down against the top of the hinge rail. So the hinge rail is your guide on this. In my case, it's on the left-hand side because that's where the hinge is. Then drive the screw in. Adjust this so that it has an even gap across the top of the door, and then drive in the 2 remaining screws. This is the rain cap extender that should be attached above the rain cap that we've already put in place. But in my case, there's not enough room to install this, and I'm on a porch that has got a good roof over this, so I'm not too worried about rain getting in there. However, if your front door is exposed to the weather, you're probably going to want to use the rain cap extender. There are 3 rubber pads that get mounted on the edge of the door. One about 6 inches from the bottom, one 6 inches from the top, and one as close to the center as you can get. So first wipe off any grease or oil that might be on the edge of the door, and then stick the pad in place. It doesn't have to be exact, roughly 6 inches from the bottom, 6 inches from the top, and roughly in the center. And here's the reason that we stuck those pads in place. They are spacers to keep the latch rail in the correct location. So now's the time to put the latch rail where it's supposed to go. Close the door, and then slide the latch rail so that it makes contact with those spacers. Once you get it against the spacers, screw the latch rail in place. When you get to the last couple of screws at the bottom and top, make sure the latch rail is pulled over against those pads so that you have the correct spacing. Now that these pads have served their purpose, just remove them. In the yellow bag are some screw plugs, these little white screw plugs, and there are 2 unused holes in the edge of the door. So put a screw plug in each of those holes. Now's the time to remove any remaining protective film on the inside or the outside of the door. On my door, I removed some protective film earlier that I showed you on the inside, but I do have some on the outside that needs to come off. So make sure all of that comes off. This is also the time to get the tape off that holds the venting glass panel in place. So they give you a drill guide, and on the drill guide you have the arrows point to the two existing holes here, and then you need to mark a line at the top of this and then at the bottom of this. And that will show you where to put this drill guide in place. With the drill guide in place, put some tape on it to hold it in place. Now that we have this drill template in place, I'm going to use a punch to mark the center spot for each of these drill holes. And yes, we have to drill 5 holes on the outside of this door, and we have to drill 5 holes on the inside of the door. And it's really best if you drill from each side and you do not go all the way through to the other side. So that's a total of 10 holes, 5 on each side. Use a 1/8 drill bit to drill a pilot hole in each of these locations. That'll make it easier for the subsequent drill. And of course, wear goggles whenever you drill. I'm all set to drill the 2 7/16 holes. Remember, there's 2 on the outside and 2 on the inside. Of course, always wear goggles when you do this. Now it's time to drill the 13/16 holes. There's 3 of them on this side, 3 on the other side. This is the bit that Andersen gave with the 2500 series door to drill the holes. This, to me, looks like a wood boring bit, but the door frame is aluminum, and of course the bit is steel, so the steel bit should be much harder than the aluminum. I switched to a different drill since that cordless drill just didn't have enough oomph. So this is a corded drill. This is powered by the wall power. So this should have a lot more oomph. And indeed it does. Now it's time to install these trim plates. There's 2 of them. One goes on the outside. It says Andersen on it. And one goes on the inside. And a screw will go through from the inside and thread into this one. So get it positioned, and the inner one positioned, and there's 2 screws that look like this. Put it through and just thread it in with your fingers. Don't tighten it up yet. Just get it threaded in with your fingers so things are held in place. Now it's time to install the latch mechanism. Notice that it says up here. So it goes up in, and it attaches with 2 screws. One screw here and one down here. This is the lock cylinder, and it rotates around in either direction, but have this black stud down and feed it in through the inside so that it penetrates the outside like that, and then it gets fixed in place with this screw right here. And if it's in correctly, the door can be locked like that. Okay, there's an inner handle and an outer handle, so which is which? Well, I think what you want is you want the up side to be on the outside like that, and you want the upside to be on the inside like this, so that the inside and outside are both up. So this is the outer handle. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take the outer handle and I'm going to mount this spindle in it. Now this groove in the spindle has to be facing this edge of the door. So I want to make sure that it goes into the handle like that. Once it's in the handle, I'm going to use this little Allen screwdriver tool to tighten that down like that. There's nylon washers that go over the handles like this. So with this washer in place, put this handle through, and the washer needs to go on this handle like this, and put the interior handle in place like that. Use the little Allen tool to tighten the interior handle down. With the handles in place, tighten down the 2 screws on this trim plate. Time to put in the strike plate. Now notice there's an oval hole on top and then a small hole and an oval hole here and a small hole. So you want to line it up so that the existing pre-drilled holes here in the door frame are in the middle of the oval holes, and get a screw started in the oval hole, in that hole and the one on the bottom. Now tighten it down with the screw in the middle of the screw slot like this. And the next thing you need to do is to try the door to see if it strikes the strike plate properly, and if not, you've now got a little bit of leeway because of these oval slots here to adjust the strike plate. So my next step is to try the door and see how well it works. Now we have to drill holes for these 2 screws. And drive in the screws. Next we need to put this latch onto the screen mechanism. The Andersen 2500 series door has a pull-down screen, and this is the latching mechanism for that screen. So there's 2 holes, one on either side for a screw, and we'll get the screw in there. Get the second screw in. Once you get these started, they go in okay, but getting them started is a bit tricky. Once that latch is in place, it's easy to just pull down the screen. Now inside, there's the door sweep that makes contact with the sill to help prevent air from blowing in. There's 2 screws that need to be loosened so the door sweep can be adjusted. I've got the one here on the left side as you're looking at it in place. Now I'm going to do the one on the right side. This is a pretty simple task. Just loosen the screws and bring the sweep down and tighten the screws back up again so that the sweep touches the sill and there's really no visible slots where air can blow through. I've got the mounting bracket that holds the door closer mechanism in place, and I'm going to pencil in spots where the 3 holes need to be drilled. I'm going to be drilling 3 pilot holes in that location for the 3 screws that hold this very tightly to the door frame. The 1/8 inch holes that I made were too small to drive the screws in, so I'm going to make a bigger hole. This is a 9/64. And as you saw, I'm kind of reaming it around a little bit. Okay, here we go. Okay, got my first screw in. Get it adjusted a little bit. And get the rest of the screws in. Actually, the 3rd screw we're going to wait until we have the door closer mechanism a little more assembled. I'm ready to put this arm in. There's little hooks here that hook into the back of this. And then the third screw goes in here. Like that. Take the door closer device, put it into the bracket like that, and using the smaller of the two pins, pin it in place. Now this is the bracket that goes onto the door. We'll be mounting it in a moment. And use the longer pin to hold it in place for the moment. And pull the closer mechanism out just a little bit and put this orange clip in place. Okay, a little awkward being down here on the floor, but I need to mark where I'm going to drill holes to mount this bracket on the door. And I'm going to mark the middle position so that I can adjust it if I need to. There we go. I'm going to drill these two holes with a 5/32 bit, and again I have to be careful not to go all the way through. I just want to go through the inside. I don't want to push so hard that I end up coming through the outside of the door. And now mount the bracket using the two holes you just drilled. Put the door closer mechanism in place, drop the pin in. You'll have to wiggle things around to get the pin to go all the way through. Now you've got the orange clip over here, so open the door slightly and take that orange clip off. Now if you look at this, there's a knob right here. This knob is used to adjust the closing speed of the door. So if the speed isn't appropriate for whatever your use is, you might want to rotate this one way or the other to adjust that speed. The final step is to get the trim in that covers the screws on either side of the door and on top of the door. And it is a struggle, but you tuck it in on the short side first. There's a short lip of metal that comes up where the screws are, and then once you get it in on the short side, you can press it in on the tall side and it goes snap, like you might have heard right there. Well, that's the installation of an Andersen 2500 series door. It really was a lot of work, especially all the drilling and mechanical work you needed to do to get the lock set in. That was probably the most complex part of this, but there were a number of tasks where you really had to pay attention to what you were doing. However, the result is it looks great. We've got one more label to peel off the door, but other than that, everything is done. Hey everybody, I'm Bob Kovacs. Thanks for watching.